We, in my office, have conservatively helped 100,000 people violate the due on sale clause in my 33-year career. And I'm not kidding.
You guys are about to hear from a great friend of mine, Harry Borders, a real estate attorney here in my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. I've known Harry for many years. The guy runs a massively successful title company, and he's a real estate closing attorney, great friend of mine, a real estate investor too, and very, again, kind of the go-to guy in the area. So you're going to get three things out of this podcast. Number one, you're going to hear behind the scenes of what to look for in a real estate attorney in your hometown. Number two, you're going to get some advice and takeaways that you're going to use in your real estate investing business. And number three, he's going to give you the opportunity to reach out to him directly to answer your questions nationwide. All right, so stick around to the end. Make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button. Helps with the algorithm. See you soon.
What does, Harry, what does your brain think? You're obviously one of my favorite real estate attorneys. You've done so massively well here in the Louisville area and known way beyond Louisville. So first off, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
But what goes on in your mind? How do you run the size of business you do?
I've gotten to the point, I'm very fortunate. I also believe that sometimes hard luck is followed by good fortune because I've worked my tail off for my career. But nonetheless, I've gotten to the point where if it's not fun, I'm not interested in doing it. So when you got in touch with me and said, will you come and do this again? My answer was, well, of course I will, because this is fun. So I look for opportunities in my business at Borders and Borders, but also in my personal portfolio. If it's not fun, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky in that I still love what I do on the work level.
Yeah.
But I love the investment stuff as well, and I love the creativity, and I love learning from every source that I can possibly learn. I consider myself one of the best interviewers of anybody that I know, and nobody even knows that I'm interviewing them, because when I'm in a closing with somebody that's smarter than me about what they're smarter than me about, I'm interviewing them. I'm talking to them. I'm getting into their brain, trying to understand how they did what they did, trying to figure out what they're going to do with it so that I can expand my own knowledge, so that I can help that use those skills for my own family, but also for my clients and my friends as well.
Yeah.
So it's very cool. I'm in a very good spot business-wise.
I love that.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you to get there? You've been doing the business for quite a few years.
Yeah, so I'm 29 years old, but I've been doing closings for 33 years.
Good.
I don't know how that math works. It's stopped working real well when I was about, doing business for 29 years. But regardless, so I've been doing real estate law for a long, long period of time. And I met a guy named Warren Jekyll, who you'll know his kids because they're running around town doing real estate investment stuff. And I ran into Warren at a closing, and I said, so Warren, when are you going to be moving into your new house? And he said, oh, I'm not moving into the new house. This is an investment house. I never even knew that anybody bought houses to rent them. That never even dawned on me. And I was probably an attorney for 4 or 5 years before I figured that out. So he comes back the next month, and I say, Warren, another investment? He says, yeah. And I thought, well, this is silly. If there's one Warren out there, there's got to be a whole bunch of Warrens out there. And if I can understand what Warren needs out of his legal team, then I can probably attract a whole bunch of other Warrens out there. So I went about my business. Mike Butler was a big impetus behind it. He gave me a big push out there in the world to get me up to speed. I did that for probably 10 years before finally I said, these guys are doing so much better than anybody that I know, and they wear tennis shoes and holes in their pants and paint everywhere. I need to start getting involved in real estate investing. So I've been doing that for probably 20 years, and I love it. I love it. I love it.
That's a really important piece. It's no secret that you're one of the best closing attorneys, real estate attorneys, and of course, do all the trusts around.
For clarification, I am the single most important Harry Borders that you'll ever know.
I like that. So very well known in the community here. Such an incredible, so many people I know swear by closing through you only, right? And I know you're going to get a lot of calls from this podcast as people see you and meet you from even beyond Kentucky and want to invest here. As you're building this up, what's been your philosophy from the 29 years you've lived on this earth, the 30 three that you've been closing deals.
You're a good listener, by the way.
How does that work for you in running the business though today? Because I know you don't do anything you don't want to do, and I'm watching you, and it feels like to me, and it's not just me. I've talked to many people in our community and our mastermind who are like, Harry acts like I'm the only customer in the world. He always has time for me, and I just want to know, how does that work for you?
So I worked for my father before running the business with my brother. And on day number 1, I was called to the corner office, and my dad says, shut the door. And I think, I'm in trouble, and I just got started. And he says to me, I want to explain to you what we're about. And he says, if you worry about the customer, you'll never worry about the money. But if you worry about the money, you'll always worry about the money. That is what we live and breathe at Borders and Borders. My focus is on what do you need. If I don't get paid, I don't get paid. I'm a believer in karma or spirituality or religion or whatever you want to call it, but I'm a big believer that the more good I can throw out in the world, the more good comes in my direction. A lot of it comes from directions that I don't expect, that I don't deserve, but that's kind of our philosophy is I don't worry about whether I'm going to get paid. And so far, I've not missed a mortgage payment and I've not missed a meal unless I chose to. Yeah. So that philosophy seems to work for us. And that really and truly, that's my focus. I'm worried about the person sitting in front of me and how can I help them. I don't worry about the money.
How many years has Borders and Borders been in operation?
My father started the firm in 1972. So we're 52 years.
That's incredible.
That's a long time.
That's because you
I have to clarify with people. We started in 1972. I was not the founder.
Good clarification there.
I was 6.
That's
or maybe
awesome.
I was just a genius founder. I don't know.
Could be. So running the business, building it up, how many team members do you have now?
About 40.
Okay. So your place is always hopping. I love that.
We try.
And you specialize, what percentage of your business is investors?
Depending on the year, right now we're probably 50 to 60% investors.
Awesome. And what's the difference from being the closing attorney, being the title attorney, the attorney's office, between working with investors? Why do you choose to be so heavy with the investors versus working with just homeowners?
So I realized when I met with Warren Jekyll that was an untapped segment of the market. And if we could get really good at it, then that could increase our overall volume. And it's worked out so very well. And at this point, I have so many dear friends that are real estate investors that I really consider. I mean, when you walked in the door this afternoon, you gave me a big hug and you said, "How you doing, brother?" Yeah. That's how I feel about you, and that's how I feel about so many people. It's just a joy for me to get to be around people that I can help and that can help me and that I can learn from.
That's awesome. In doing this, Harry, if you don't mind letting us know some of your secrets, and we'll get into like some of the nitty gritty that real estate investors can, avoid the challenges, all of that stuff. But before we do that, what's been the secret for you, and as you've built this, to building up the team of 40? You lead with value, but if somebody else is going up, I want to become the greatest attorney in my town. Like, what's been that secret for you? Been that marketing strategy.
So we try to be humble, and we try to live by the motto, I don't need to be the best person at every job in my office. I need to hire the best person for their job. Everybody in my office is better at their job than I would be at their job. So we hire well. We're very careful about who we select to work on our team, and we treat them really well. It's a pretty easy thing. My stockbroker came to me, I don't know, probably 10 years ago, and he said, "Your main office manager, how long has she worked with you?" And I said, about 20 years. And he said, "What's the key to success? What do you pay her? How much do you pay her?" And I said, "You tell me what you pay your key person first, and then I'll answer the question." He was paying 50 cents on the dollar what we pay our key people. We very much cherish them. They are critical to the operations globally, and I try like crazy to treat them as well as I possibly can.
That's a huge rider-downer right there. That's cool. A lot of people listening to this are running teams or starting to build a team. And as they're doing that, I notice, there's so many ideologies, all the way from people one extreme overpay and under lead, so people just kind of get lost in the flow, to people who expect free help, right, and everywhere in between. And so that's a very cool insight. But going a little deeper into kind of the nitty gritty of who is Harry, as you're built this company up, you speak at various events, you're kind of everywhere all the time. What do you do that makes so many of the real estate investors who close with you raving evangelical fans of your office?
I try to stay on top of my game. I try to understand as much as I can about what the needs are of my client, and I care, and I like them. I work with people that I really care about. It makes it easy to do good work for them when you care about them.
What would you say, so for real estate investors listening to this, first off, and we'll get your contact info at the end because they can call your office, and whether they're in state or out, because a lot of out-of-state people invest here. But what would you say for someone, maybe they got a deal in Pennsylvania, or they got a deal in New York, or they got a deal in Arizona, and they're looking for a great local closing attorney like you? What should they be looking for? How do they find that person?
Find your local RIA. Local RIAs are chock full of opportunities for good contacts. That's where I would start. And I would start by talking to my fellow investors in the area, and I'd find out who they like. And honest to goodness, when somebody says, well, you ought to go to Harry Borders, then you ought to be calling Harry Borders and you ought to be interviewing Harry Borders. I have to apply for the job to work with you every single day. I tell every new investor, my job is to make you successful. Let me. Call me, text me, email me, whatever.
Yeah.
But I have to earn it. I don't take it for granted that because maybe my name means something to some people that means I'm going to get the business. I've got to earn it every single day. So join your RIAs, figure out who the main players are, and there's several people that are going to be doing the same thing. Interview them. Figure out which one you like. Figure out which one's going to charge you for a phone call and which one isn't going to charge you for a phone call. Figure out what their business attitude is. Is their attitude, I'm not going to worry about the money because I'm worried about the customer, or is it vice versa? It's not rocket science. There's plenty of good people out there.
That's really good. I like that because a lot of times, especially for somebody who's new, I remember looking for my first real estate investing attorney in Indiana, and I was scared out of my mind. Like, I'd never talked to an attorney before. I was from a little bitty town. And so it was an overwhelming task. And as I began to Google and just call people, I didn't realize what I was doing, but it was that. I was interviewing to find the right one, which I finally did. Something I remember about my very first attorney ever. She just started. She just got her license. She still lives She lives now in Texas, and we stay in touch. From meeting her a decade ago, she closed my first deal, so there was a special connection there. And something I noticed about her was, at the time, because she was brand new, she didn't know how to close a sub-2 or creative finance deal. But she went on YouTube and watched a video as I sent her and went to her managing partner and figured it out and was willing to learn and take that ride with me. I was new, she was new, and we learned together. And I thought that was very interesting. But on your perspective, Harry, being the attorney who, you know about land trusts, you're the go-to guy for entity structuring locally, for all of these asset protection pieces, what piqued your interest to go, I'm going to go beyond closing real estate deals, and I'm going to figure out how to help people structure their empires?
I just love it. I live and I breathe it. I wake up thinking about what I do for a living and what I do for a retirement, and I love it. And I love the people that I work with. So it's easy. It's easy. Now, when I first got started with investors, I didn't know anything. I mean, I knew absolutely nothing. Mike Butler came to me, Mike, for those of you that don't know, Mike is a local living legend. And Mike came to me, and for whatever reason, he took a shine for me, and he said, you need to get into this more. There's a lot of business to be had, and I can help you. And he told me about land trusts. And I said, Mike, that sounds like smoke and mirrors. And he said, it is. It's legal smoke and mirrors. It's ethical smoke and mirrors. It's what we want. It's what we need. We don't even know that we want it or need it. You should be the Pied Piper of it. And by golly, he was right. I mean, that was a big door to open up when Mike Butler said, I want to come in and I want to do my closings with you, and I want to help you to get to a stronger point.
So being a forever student.
forever student.
And what's, before we get into some of the technicals of real estate, who is Harry Borders? What's family life like? What's your life?
Family life is great. I've got a beautiful wife. I've got a blended family of 7 kids from 31 to 15 to 14. I love my free time away from work. I'm very fortunate that I work with my brother, which means he can take a lot of vacation and I can take a lot of vacation. We just got back from a month of sailing in the Caribbean. It was absolutely magic, and I didn't have to worry about being at work because my brother took care of it. And he'll be gone in a couple of weeks for about that same amount of time, and I'll do the same for him. So, I try to strike the right balance between work and play. When I was in law school, I bumped into this guy that was a third-year law student, which means he was on his way out the door, and he was drunk as a monkey. He bumped into me, and I'm nervous as can be because I don't know anything about anything. And he says, "Are you a 1L?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Here's the lesson to live by. Work hard, play hard." And I do both of those very well. I work my tail off when I'm working, and when I'm not, I'm not. When I get in the car and I drive home, my stressometer is relieved down because I'm out of work. But when I'm at work, I'm going 100 miles an hour. So, I try to have a good work-life balance.
Did that take a lot of time or come naturally, just being able to kind of turn off work?
No, that took a long time.
Yeah. So how recent has that switch?
I've probably been pretty good at it for about a decade now.
Okay.
So, but I get better all the time.
Yeah.
When we step foot on that boat, we don't care about anything except for that boat.
Is that something, let's say there's somebody watching this and they're year into business or brand new or 2 years and they're kind of in that grind and hustle. Is that just a season everyone has to go through, or can they figure out the turn off work thing sooner?
There are some folks that are way more intelligent than me. We were just talking about your guys that are doing some spectacular things out in LA. Some of them, it comes natural to. Most of us have to grind it out.
Yeah.
And I ground it out for so many years. And, again, you and I were saying this earlier. I didn't know that we were being recorded, so I may have already said this before. But I'm a big believer that good luck follows hard work.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky. But I'm lucky because I've worked my tail off.
Yeah.
Same thing with you.
That's good perspective. What guides your philosophy for life?
That's a good question. You'll laugh when I tell you this. I'm probably one of the most shallow thinkers that you know. I mean that sincerely. I just bumble and fumble my way through life. I have a general compass that tells me what direction to go. I go in that direction, and I don't do a whole lot of goal planning and setting, and I just know the direction I want to go, and it seems to be working. So, my life philosophy is tomorrow is not guaranteed. Enjoy it today. And I tell you what, when I get to the office, I enjoy it. When I get home from the office, I enjoy it. That's
cool. What would you say to real estate investors? I get the question a lot that, what should I do for asset protection? Should I get my entity set up now? How do I close my first deal? What do you say to that person? What's kind of the key 2 or 3 points they can look at for starting to protect their assets early, but not over-focusing on that, and for really being prepared to close their first deal or deals?
So once or twice a year, I have, it's usually a couple. They come in with a big binder that's about 3 or 4 inches thick, and I know what they've done. They've gotten sold a bill that they don't need. Your asset protection plan grows as your assets grow. I tell every new investor, I want to see you every single December forever, because I'm going to see you and I'm going to celebrate with you and give you a high five when you're doing your closings, but I'm not going to see at the level that I need all the details, where you are, where you've been, where you're going.
Yeah.
So December is the right time for us to look at what you have done. What are you going to focus on next year? In December, I'm going to know more what my 2025 outlook looks like than I'm going to know in April of this year.
Of course.
So I want to sit with my investors every single fourth quarter forever to talk it through. You don't need complexity. You just need, and I'm a big believer in the keep it simple, stupid method. And so far it appears to work. So it's just a matter of us sitting together and talking about what our goals are, talking about the direction that we're going, and putting the pieces of the puzzle together that we need to put together. It's not rocket science. I'm a keep it simple, stupid kind of guy.
Yeah, that's good advice, because I think it's easy to overthink that, especially in the early stages.
No question.
Everybody just needs an LLC, a land trust. What do you recommend?
Depends. Wholesalers, when they start out, they probably don't need anything, because until they're making net 75 grand or more, there's no tax benefits associated with setting up an LLC. Until you own something, there's no liability in being a wholesaler. It's not my house that they're walking in. If they fall in a hole, it's not my hole. So there's not a whole lot of liability on a wholesaler's part. But once they start making about 75 grand a year net, then there's massive tax savings that they can receive by having an LLC set up and having it taxed as an S corp. S as in small.
Perfect.
So, it changes as the direction that you take your business changes. A lot of people start out wholesaling, then they'll come in at the end of the year, and I'll say, what is next year looking like? And they're exploding, and it looks like it's going to be over 100 grand. Time to set up an LLC. In my mind, the proper direction, which is so funny, and I've told you this before, Andrew, what you do is what I have preached, which is start making money, do your wholesale deals. That's great. Enjoy it a little bit. Don't live high in the hog. I ask everybody, what kind of car do you drive?
Yeah.
When the newbies are driving nicer cars than I'm driving, I don't have a whole lot of faith that they're making the right decisions that are going to get them in a good place.
Yeah.
But all that changes as everything around you changes.
A lot of common sense. I like that. What would you say as people are getting used to doing deals, they're wanting to make sure every year their entities are structured right, they're coming into this business, what's some of the pitfalls that they can avoid or look at to avoid?
Overcomplicating. I had a lady come into me, and she has 41 residential condos, and she said, Harry, I need 41 LLCs. And I said, no, you don't. And she said, yes, I do. And I said, mark my words, next year, this is going to be such a pain in the butt for you. You're going to call me back, and you're going to say, I need 2 LLCs, because that's what you need. You don't need 41 LLCs. So overcomplicating things is not a good strategy. I want to make sure that I'm doing it right, and the more complexities that I add into it, the more tax filings I have, the more expenses that I have, and more important than any of that is the increase in chances that I do it wrong, in which case somebody can come after me and sue me personally.
When you're getting deals contracted, so I know the wholesaling laws have changed in Kentucky recently. As people are wholesaling deals, contracting deals in various states, what's the things they need to look out for?
So I had a young man come in to visit with me, and he was very, very nervous, and I could tell that he was very nervous. And I said, it's all right, tell me what's going on. And he said, well, I got my first wholesale deal under contract, and then I can't perform because I apparently overpriced it. So I went out to my buyer's list, and nobody wanted it. So I had to tell the lady, I'm really sorry, I don't want to buy your property anymore. She turned around and resold it for $8,000 less. He was holding in his shaky hand a demand letter from an attorney that said, you owe my client $8,000. And the answer was, he did in fact owe the client $8,000. And the reason is because he pulled a contract off the internet that didn't protect him. So number one protection is you've got to make sure that you've got contracts that are worth having. So find somebody. If the attorney that you think you want to work with doesn't say, here's the one to use and you can have it for free, keep shopping for an attorney. That's my job. My job is to make you successful. If on your first deal out the gate, it doesn't work and you owe $8,000, I didn't do you a service.
It was an expensive seminar.
It was a very expensive seminar. It was a very expensive free contract that the guy got off the internet.
Yeah.
So that's a good place to start. Anytime you buy anything, to keep it, even if keep it means that you're going to do a retail flip. Anytime you buy anything to keep, you definitely need an LLC. And my big belief is that you also need a land trust.
Why is that?
So I'm driving home from work and I run over somebody and I get sued. Bill Gates is driving home from work. he runs over somebody and he gets sued. Whose plaintiff's attorney is more excited?
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates. That's because Bill Gates is Bill Gates. He's got tons of money. If the public can figure out that Harry has tons of money, the public wants it. It's just human nature. So if I run over somebody and all my assets are exposed, then they can figure that out, and that my bullseye got a whole lot bigger, and the enthusiasm of the attorney got a whole lot stronger. So land trusts are free to set up. There's a couple states that they're not allowed or that they're regulated more heavily. Pennsylvania, Arizona, one or two others. But anyway, they're free to set up because we don't charge to set them up. There's no tax return. There's no tax ID number. There's no bank account. And more important than anything else, they're not registered, which means the public can't see who the real owner is. The real owner is the beneficiary of the trust, but nobody gets to see who that beneficiary is. My office, quite frequently, you've seen this yourself, when we set up a trust, we recommend that your trustee be Harry Borders, not you. Because if Andrew Schlag is the one that is the trustee on the deed, and Andrew runs over somebody, and he's the trustee on a whole bunch of properties, they know that he's got something to do with it. Mm-hmm. So we set them up where I'm the trustee, I sign the deed, I immediately resign, the beneficiary, your LLC, then appoints you as the trustee. Now you are the beneficiary, i.e. the real owner. You are the trustee, i.e. the decision maker. You're everything, but nobody gets to see any of it.
And I'm sure you understood 100% of that on take one, right? I share that. Wait, you can rewind this, by the way. You should rewind this and listen to this a few times, because what Harry just said is potentially millions of dollars of advice to you. And that's powerful. And that's why we give away contracts to all of the people who watch us on YouTube, wherever, for free, for that very reason, because we want people to begin to on the right foot. When they pay for a seminar, we want it to be because they're hanging out with us for 3 days, not because they accidentally paid for an $8,000 seminar for their own contract.
Yep. I had an elderly couple that came in to see me. They were mid-60s, and they were both very nervous when they came in, and they brought me that big fat binder. And they were telling me what they had done, and they paid $20,000 for the binder. And it had so much silly stuff in it that I had to gently say to them, we need to get rid of all of this. This is going to cost you, they had no assets. This is going to cost you a fortune just in the tax filings. So I gently said, we're going to undo all this stuff. And by the time I was done with them, and I was as gentle as I could be, she was kicking him under the table and he was crying.
Oof.
Because they didn't have $20,000 for a down payment on a house.
Yeah.
Let alone down payment on a series of messes that they had created for themselves.
That's a letdown.
It was a big time letdown.
But goes back to being surrounded by the right people.
That's exactly right.
Doing this podcast in the room next to where we're about to do this meetup, and we got 75 excited local investors showing up, and we spent a ton of money on food that should be showing up shortly. So that's going to be fun. But the free meetups, that's why we do them, because we want people hanging around the right people. Because when you're around the right people, such as yourself, such as some of the others that are going to be on my panel, everything gets easier.
Yep.
It reminds me, Harry, the last event, we do the 3-day events, the last one you were at with us, which, by the way, I want to invite you to the next one.
Awesome.
In August.
Is it going to be fun?
It's going to be a blast.
Then I'll be there.
All right, cool. Pone's going to be on the panel, too.
Awesome.
This is going to be fun. But August 16th, I'll get you the date after. August 16th, we'll go hang out again. But the last event, your office closed a deal. Chris bought the deal at the live event, and Frank, who was on the panel, funded the deal.
Yep.
All at that live event.
Yep.
And it was all done right because it was surrounded by the right people.
Yep.
And that stood out to me. But what do you see, and the people who come to you with the mistakes, of course, what do you see being the common pattern of the people who come to you doing it right and avoiding those mistakes? What is that missing piece?
So I'm going to use myself as an example.
Please.
So when I first got started doing real estate investment stuff, I was smarter than anybody. I knew more than anybody did. I was convinced of it. There was one flaw in my thinking, which was I wasn't any of those things, but I thought I was, which meant that I was making every decision, including the really dumb ones, in a vacuum. I don't make decisions in a vacuum anymore. I'm surrounded by people that are smarter than me at what they're smarter than me at. So when I decide I want to do something, I'll pick up the phone and I'll call somebody. Frank is a good example. I've called Frank several times, like, hey, what about this? This is what I'm thinking I want to do. Nowadays, most people don't say, no, you got it wrong, Harry. But what is the harm in me vetting it with somebody that does this at a level that I don't quite reach yet?
Yeah.
There's no problem with that. So that's the biggest mistake that folks make, is they don't surround themselves with like-minded people. You know, who are the top 2 or 3 or 4 people that you hang out with? Do their goals and values align with yours? Because if they don't, you need to go find somebody else that you can find a better alignment with. So I make decisions no longer in a vacuum, and I don't make mistakes. Doesn't mean that I can't make a mistake, but 3 minds are better than Harry's. And that's what I tell people all the time. Go to your local RIA. It's like speed dating. Hi, I'm Harry, what do you do? Hi, I'm Harry, what do you do? Hi, I'm Harry, what do you do? Hey, you do that? Can I take you out for a sandwich or a cup of coffee? Get to know people, jump into the community. You'll find somebody that wants to help you. The real estate investor community, as a general rule, is a massively abundant mentality. It's not scarcity. I share every secret that I know. Yeah. Sometimes my wife kicks me under the table. But I share what I know because somebody has shared what they know, and that's why I know. We were joking earlier, Harry Borders ain't never taught Harry Borders anything before. I learned by absorbing from others.
That is something that I think is so powerful, Harry, and that's something that sets you apart for sure, is you practice what you just said right there. You show up at every event possible. You're speaking, teaching, shaking hands, meeting people. And I think there's something to be said for that. You know, when I started, of course, I was from a little town of 400 people. I didn't know anybody. I just borrowed the money to pay for a seminar and wound up in a room with 75 other real estate investors, right? And so...
And one of these days, I'm going to do a podcast where I'm interviewing you because I want to pick that massive brain.
We'll have fun doing it.
Figure out how in the world this all happened.
Well, it's hanging around people like you, brother.
This is a thing of beauty right here.
Thank you for that.
Not on my end, on your end.
That's, you know, I think it's powerful, though. And this, exactly what you just said, is we're hanging out with the right people, everything begins to come together.
Yep.
Right? And so for somebody who maybe is shy, because I was when I started, or believed I was anyway, what would you tell them? How do they go to a networking event and break out of that shell?
You have to. You know, if you're committed to something, you're going to do it. Yeah. Growth never happens in the comfort zone.
Yeah.
You're a big workout guy. Have you ever not worked out and you got better and stronger? And
no.
No, of course not.
A little fatter.
Growth occurs outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And if you can't muster the strength to do it, you know, go find a different job because this is not for you. You've got to get really comfortable with failure. Not failure in that my deal was a failure, because again, I'm going to vet it and I'm not going to have those failures. But failure in that a lot of people are going to tell me no before somebody's going to tell me yes. You are the master at that. Your numbers are off the chart compared to everybody else, but it took an awful lot of screw yous before you got to the point that people were saying, yeah, let's talk.
Still get more no's than yeses.
Of course.
Part of doing business.
Of course.
So, speed round. Got a few quick questions for you. Real estate specific.
Fire away.
Due on sale clause.
Yes.
What does it mean, and should we be scared of it?
Due on sale clause is in almost every mortgage, and it's a provision that effectively says if you sell or otherwise transfer the real estate, then you have to pay the loan off. So we, in my office, have conservatively helped 100,000 people violate the due on sale clause in my 33-year career. And I'm not kidding. 100,000 times we have helped people to violate the due on sale clause.
That'd be the title of the podcast, Violating the Due on Sale Clause 100,000 times.
We've probably had 3 or 4 that have ever been called due simply because of the due on sale clause, simply because of the transfer. Now, we don't want the lenders to know this, that we're making these transfers, because it's one of those things where you don't ask for permission because you won't get it.
Yeah.
But you'll probably never have to ask for forgiveness either. You know, sometimes I'll swing by meet my brother-in-law for a beer after work. I ask for forgiveness. I don't ask for permission.
Right.
We don't ask our lenders for permission because they won't give us permission. So is it something that we need to have in our mind? 100%. When we've got a seller that's selling subject to, we will have that conversation with them so they understand exactly what they're getting themselves into. But I'm not kidding. 100,000 times we've helped people to violate a due on sale clause. We've had a couple. On one hand, I can tell you how many times it's been called due.
That's part of the trust situation
100%,
too, isn't it?
100%.
Got it. Okay. Next, should they get title insurance on a creative deal or sub-2 deal?
Yes, 100%. Here's when I wouldn't get owner financing. And this is a little bit technical, so you might have to rewind it a little bit. If I'm going to do a double closing where it's being wholesale where I buy it, I immediately turn around and I sell it. If I'm going to do that where I take title for 15 minutes, long enough for me to sell it to the next end buyer, if my contract to the end buyer has something called a special warranty deed, that is a guarantee for that little 15 minutes that I've owned the property that there are no title defects. Well, I've been sitting there the whole 15 minutes, so I know there's no title defects for that 15 minutes. So if my contract, which mine does, and yours does as well, if my contract on an A to B, on my B to C end, where I'm selling to the end buyer on a double close, if it says special warranty deed, I won't buy title insurance. Other than that, I will always buy title insurance.
What about putting a balloon on a terms deal? What does that mean?
Putting a balloon on a terms deal. Talk to me.
Buying on under financing, the seller wants paid off in 5 years. You agree to pay them a monthly payment, maybe on a 30-year payout, but it's a 5-year balloon. What should they look out for?
So we should try to avoid that as much as we can, and a lot of that is our salesmanship, because we can have these conversations with sellers, and by the way, I have these conversations with sellers frequently on behalf of buyers, where they say, do you mind talking to the seller because they're nervous? I talk to sellers all the time that are nervous, and I try to get them to understand the tax liability is lessened if they carry it the full term. On top of that, they get cash flow for a longer term. So generally speaking, it doesn't make sense from the seller's perspective, nor does it from yours as the investor, to have a balloon note on your owner financing type deals.
Absolutely. And I agree. I try to not do those anytime possible.
But
longer's better.
But if you have to, because that's the only way they're going to do the deal, analyze it, vet it, talk to somebody smarter than you, and figure out whether it still makes sense. It probably still does.
Good advice. What's a couple more real common questions you get from new investors of challenges they run into that some of our listeners might be thinking of right now?
So asset protection is certainly one that we talk about quite frequently, and what types of LLCs and where should they be based out of, and how should they be taxed. So we have those conversations. I'm certainly not a CPA, but I most certainly play one on an almost daily basis. So I feel those kind of questions all the time, despite and I wouldn't do it if I didn't feel comfortable in giving that advice. So that's part of what we deal with all the time. Most of it is, honest to goodness, I tell most of my new investors, I should have been a bartender, because a lot of what I'm going to tell you is bartender stuff. It's not legal stuff, it's practical stuff. You have to get used to failure. You have to be okay to get outside of your comfort zone. You have to be okay to ask questions. You have to surround yourself with people that are like-minded that can help you to get yourself from point A to point B. Yeah. An old Korean War veteran friend of mine named Bob Blanc, who passed away a couple of years ago, he taught me something very, very important, which is if you're talking to somebody very genuinely, very sincerely, and you ask them for your help, to help you, because they are more of an expert at it than you are, not only will they want to, they will feel compelled to do so, because you honestly hold them in such a high regard, they don't want to let you down. Ask questions. Find the people that are the smartest person in the room and chat with them. You would be amazed at what you'll learn.
One more question, because we're about out of time, about to have to go to live here in just a moment. What is the craziest transaction that you've ever done, whether it's personally or closed for somebody else? What's the craziest or most memorable transaction?
So I called a guy up off of PVA, and he had 35 acres in Fern Creek, which is a suburb of Louisville. And I said, I want to buy your property. And he said, well, your timing is good because I want to sell my property. So he and I write a contract, and I don't remember what the numbers were because it was 15 or 18 years ago. But it was might have been $400,000 or $500,000, which I didn't have the money for that, but I drafted the contract in a way that was going to protect me. So I put him under contract at, let's just call it $500,000. And I thought, I felt a little bit like the dog that chased the car and caught it. What do I do now? So I called up a local developer, and I said, I got a piece of property tied up under contract. I want to sell you the contract. I'd never seen or even heard of a wholesale deal before. I just conjured it up one day. And he came out and looked at it, and he said, I'll give you $800,000 for it. That's $300,000 of profit. So I did, before I even knew the term wholesaling, I did a wholesale deal that pocketed me $300,000.
Wow.
Just like that. And
then you had the 500.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then fast forward to 2 weeks down the road, I'm on an airplane, I'm flying with my kids to Disney World, and I'm reading a book called IRA Wealth. And I figured out on the plane that I could have done that deal in an IRA and never paid a nickel in taxes. And I went, whoa! And I was with my mom and my dad, they were sitting next to me. And my mom said, are you okay? I said,
not really.
I think I'm going to throw up. She said, what are you talking about? I said, I think I just left $120,000 on the table.
Wow.
But, that's the kind of stuff that you learn as you hang out with people that have been there and done that.
Yeah. That's powerful. That's one to remember. and it was still a win, even with the mistakes.
Still a win.
And I think that's a powerful thing about real estate. When it's done right, you can make mistakes and still win.
Sure can.
That's powerful.
Time cures a lot in real estate. Time cures a lot.
Could not be more true.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Harry.
My pleasure. I always have fun. Always have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
On the next one.
Sounds great.
Bye for now, guys.
Thanks, guys.
How can everyone here reach you before we start asking the questions?
Easiest way is email Harry, Harry, at harryborders.com, BORDERS, Harry at harryborders.com, or office 502-238-1115, 502-238-1115. And if you're not Kentucky, you're welcome to call me, nonetheless, I probably can still help you.